So, good morning and welcome to the REACT Learning Series. My name is Vanessa Brewer and I am the Regional Interagency Council Program Administrator. And my co-host is Lee Taylor. Lee is the State Interagency Council Program Administrator, and we both work at the Department for Behavioral Health, Developmental, and Intellectual Disabilities. So I want to thank you for joining us today. Today's session is titled Grandparents and Relative Caregivers Raising Grandchildren and/or Children. This is part one, and it'll be on the caregiver focus. So be on the lookout. There will be a part two down the road that will be more of a youth focus. Our speakers today are Maurice Lee. Maurice is with the Department for Community-Based Services. We've got Sheila Renfro. She is with UK's College of Social Work. They're going to be speaking on the legislative changes regarding funding and resources that grandparents and relative caregivers have access to, and the data depicting how many grandparents and relative caregivers are raising grandchildren in Kentucky. We also have Candy Breedwell with us today. She is a grandparent raising 3 grandchildren, and she is the newest member of the Northern Kentucky REACT. And so Candy is going to share her journey raising grandchildren, helpful resources, and possible barriers and needs that she's encountered along the way. So before I turn it over to our presenters, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. If you haven't already, please mute your mics. We have time carved out at the end for questions and answers. So if you have questions, if you can hold those till the end, we'll use that time for that. And when we do get to that time, you are free to unmute and ask or use the chat box. Lee and I will both be monitoring that. This session will be recorded and posted on the REACT YouTube channel. So we'll put that link in the chat box later on in the session. A session evaluation will also be posted in the chat box towards the end of the session. So please take a moment to complete that at that time. And as always, certificates of attendance are available by request. You can email me if you'd like to have one, and I'm going to put my email in the chat box as well. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Maurice to let him introduce himself and Sheila to introduce herself.
All righty. Hi, my name is Maurice Lee. I am a specialist for the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, and my program area that I specialize in is supports for relative and victim caregivers. While that's not the only thing that I do with my title, that's the kind of the main thing that I guess I say that, that I do. So I keep up with a lot of the changes that do occur across the state and help to implement some of the new practices as legislators make changes, or we advocate for change and they agree with this and make those changes. And because of that, because of the changes, it has brought together a partnership, especially with UK, with a lot of work that they do. And so I'll let Sheila introduce herself and talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here. My name is Sheila Renfro, and I am the Kinship Program Coordinator with the University of Kentucky. We've been able to partner with the Cabinet to provide some programs to support kinship caregivers or caregivers raising relative or fictive kin children. So I'm excited for the opportunity to be able to speak with you all and tell you a little bit about what we're doing.
All righty, I'm assuming everyone can see my screen. All righty, so I'm going to kind of take us on a little journey real quickly on what has kind of transpired and where we're at now, because hopefully in the future we'll be adding more service provisions for our caregivers. So I want to start with the relative service array. Back in 2019, this was monumental for Kentucky. The service array gives families the option to either seek approval as a foster parent, or they've always had the option to take temporary custody. This particularly deals with those who are involved with DCBS with a social worker. So what typically happens in those situations is that if, an investigation comes out, let's say, for example, a mother has overdosed or a father has overdosed on drugs, and that home is no longer safe for those children to remain in, more than likely a social worker is going to become involved, and they're going to be looking for family as their first placement. Say we find a grandmother, we're going to then offer that grandmother the option to either seek approval as a foster parent, or they could just take temporary custody at court. One of the important things that we have been reiterating to families, that this decision is a really big decision, because the decision has to be made by the first initial court date. I won't get into all the technical reasons why, but it all goes back to funding. But there is a video, and you can actually find it on KY Faces. If you just Google KY Faces, go to the kinship tab and scroll down to how we support you, you will see this video, and the link to the video is there. But it kind of breaks down what it is to seek approval as a foster parent. You have to go through training, just like any foster parent would. The one difference is that we actually provide you a per diem while you are seeking approval, and that child is in your home. So like when we think of the atypical foster home, you have to be approved first before you can accept children in your home. In this particular situation, if you are a family member and you make this decision, the children will be placed with you immediately. And you'll start your training process. But while you're going through that, you'll receive a per diem of $12 a day. We do have the option for a lesser training amount or reduced hours, or you could have waivers of non-safety for child-specific homes, but that means that your home will be approved at a lower rate of $11.51 per day. But we strive as an agency to work through whatever issues that there may be, so that way you can receive the full per diem amount of $24.10 a day. One of the new things that has transpired is the updated definition of fictive kin. Previously, fictive kin meant an individual who is not related by birth or adoption or marriage to a child, but who is has an emotionally significant relationship with the child. The one addition to that is what we were running across is we have a lot of babies who are born substance exposed. And so fictive kin technically didn't at the time, if there was a family friend or someone that the family knew, if there wasn't anyone involved, they didn't fall under that definition, because there was nothing in there about a family friend having a significant relationship with the biological parent. So while we oftentimes still sought those placements, they still didn't technically legally fall in the definition. So one of the things that was added was an emotionally significant relationship with a biological parent, siblings, or half siblings of the child in the case of a child from birth to 12 months of age prior to placement. So that definition brought in a whole pool of another pool of people that would actually be considered fictive kin, because we know we do have a lot of babies who are born substance exposed, and sometimes other family members aren't appropriate. So we would like to still be able to place with someone who is deemed as fictive kin, because they do have that significant relationship with that family. And also we would assume that those families also have or share the same cultural aspects and the aspects that family does. So that way we can keep intact that child's community. So while that was a really important change for us. Another change, because we know as an agency, fictive kin caregivers don't necessarily receive the same amount of benefits as an individual who's considered a relative by blood or marriage. So what initially we called the relative placement support benefit. It was a one-time payment that could be given to a caregiver who had temporary custody or was seeking approval as a foster parent. Initially, it was relatives were only folks that were eligible for, but in January of last year, there was a change legislatively that now allows fictive kin individuals to be able to also receive that benefit. And the reason why that's important is if you can imagine, if you receive one child and say that child doesn't necessarily have a lot of clothing to bring with them, or you're going to have to buy another bed, or if you have 2 kids. So if you can imagine getting a one-time payment of $700 to help be able to provide some of those imminent needs, that's a huge benefit for, it was a huge benefit for relatives, but now it's a huge benefit for everyone. The one thing that I still have to note about this is that it is only a one-time payment. So heaven forbid a child has to move or go to another placement, they wouldn't be eligible for that. But if there are other things that we can do depending upon the route of which the new caregiver might go. So if we say we place with one grandparent and then we go to another grandparent and they decide to seek approval as a foster parent, we then could look at maybe issuing a clothing voucher for that family. But I did want to lay this out so that way everyone is aware like what these amounts are and that everyone is now eligible for this. Another big thing that really recently happened, as probably about 2 weeks ago, is KTAP. KTAP, we know since 1995 has not changed. The rates have always historically been what you see, the $186 for one child. And 2 weeks ago, it was on a Thursday, we finally got word that we're going to double it. So now if you are a relative caregiver, a grandparent, an uncle, a cousin, anyone who's related by blood or marriage, the new rate is for one child now is $372 compared to $186. That's, while we know that's not necessarily enough and we'd love for it to be more, but this is a really big jump for us. So this is, this could really support with that additional cost of groceries, the inflation that we know is going on. So this was huge. And so so 3/1 is the effective date. So now families during the month of March will see an increase in their KTAP rates. We know in the future that there are some asks. We know that there's still a few barriers when it comes to KTAP rates, or with the process of applying. It requires families to cooperate with child support enforcement. I know that there is a lot of groups that are working on trying to get this changed legislatively, and I know there's stuff going on with this in this session. While there's hope for it to be changed soon, it just still, a lot of changes like this takes time. But it is one thing that we are working on, and that hopefully in the future that will change, so that way it takes that burden off of that family to do as such. Another important thing to think about when it comes to KTAP, and that people often get confused about, is that your income as a caregiver does not matter when it comes to applying for KTAP. It's always based upon the income of the child. So if you're a caregiver, you can go to your local family support office and say, hey, I want to apply as a payee for this child or for these kids. And so the main thing you really have to do is just verify that child is living in your home, and be able to prove that you are a relative caregiver or that child's relative. So those are really important things to think about whenever you're going to apply for KTAP. So because of this increase, we do expect to see more families actually apply and go through with it, because there is a need for monetary supports. One of the big questions that I also get around KTAP is, why aren't fictive kin caregivers eligible for this? This is because it is a TANF program, so temporary assistance for needy families. And this is a federally ran program, so it's not state dollars that this money is pulled from, it's from federal. And because of that, we have to follow their guidelines, and it is only for relative caregivers. So just really high level data, because to try to help encompass what data is out there. This is from the Annie E. Cation Foundation, Grand Families, and the Children's Bureau. So in Kentucky, there's around 125,706 kids who are living in home where a relative is a head of household. So while we have some data, it's very limited because there are a lot of families who are raising kids that we won't necessarily ever know about, because of their family. They're taking care of their own issues. They want cabinet involvement a lot of times. So there's that set population. Then there's the population that we deal with. So it says also 77,000 kids are being raised by kin with no parent present. And then currently there's 932 children in foster care being raised by kin. It appears that grandparents still are the majority of the relatives that are actually taking care of their grandkids compared to it being an aunt, uncle, cousin, or fictive kin. And so one other additional statistic is for every one child raised by kin in foster care, there are 82 being raised by kin outside of foster care. And so from looking at other data, Kentucky is one of the higher states, I want to say, in the US where kids are with kin. So I want to say it's around 6% compared to, and that's one of the higher rates. It used to be around 8 per the data that we had looked at, but it's kind of dropped to 6. But we are still one of the highest states where kids are being raised by someone other than their biological parent. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Sheila so that way she can talk about the KY Kids program, which is really geared towards providing that support for kind of our service deserts in regards to those with the informal placement. The ones that we're not necessarily involved with are those who take temporary custody. So I'm going to turn it over to Sheila so that way she can kind of give an overview on our KY Kids program.
Awesome, terrific. Okay, so as he said, we have been working with DCBS to provide some support services for kinship caregivers. Oftentimes that when a grandmother, an aunt, an uncle becomes a kinship caregiver, they have to try to figure out, okay, now what do I do from here? I've got to get my child in school. I've got to get Medicaid. I've got to find if there's any kind of source of payment like KTAP, and how do I sign up for it? So there becomes this whole barrage of questions. And on top of just adjusting their daily routine and their daily schedule to taking care of the needs of a child. And so that's where we come in, and that's where our programs can really help and can provide some support and some guidance for kinship caregivers to be able to navigate this world of kinship care and to be able to find some support while doing it. So through our programs, which I'm going to tell you very briefly about, we hope to be able to connect kinship caregivers with these resources. So we've developed a peer support program, which is a one-on-one program where a caregiver can meet with someone individualized to get some very structured support and some guidance. We also have a support group program where they can connect and enlarge their community support system. And then we also have an educational platform called our catalog. So it's our hope through these programs that we'll be able to get those resources to kinship caregivers when they need them, as they need them. Can you move to the next slide? So how these programs can really be beneficial to kinship caregivers? We'll look first at our KY Kins, which is our one-on-one peer support program. KY Kin stands for Kinship Information, Navigation, and Support. And it's through this program that we can match a caregiver with a trained, we call them peer support specialists, who are kinship caregivers themselves and have been doing it for several years. So they have that lived experience, but they've also had an extensive amount of training that we've provided them. They're employees of the university, so this allows them not only the lived experience, but the training and the time to be able to work with kinship caregivers, to be able to really get them connected to the resources and the supports that they really need. So through this program, because they have that lived experience, they have that day in, day out experience of what a family truly needs, what those needs look like, what those concerns are, and that provides a very unique relationship for a peer supporter and a caregiver to have. You know, we all work with kinship caregivers from time to time in different veins, whether it's mental health or social work. But this relationship is unique because it does have that same lived experience that really can connect with the kinship caregivers and just help them find those resources. We also hope to be able to network these families to resources that exist in their community and in the state, so that they can get the resources they need to meet the challenges that they're facing in raising their kinship children. So whether we find them, you know, through KTAP funding, or as Maurice talked about, the RPSB funding, we'll also look at community-based programs, clothing banks, food banks, things like that, that can provide additional support so that some of their own personal income can be freed up to better care for their family. We also, because we do have peer supporters with a long history of this lived experience, they can meet with kinship caregivers to work through those everyday situations, those everyday frustrations, those everyday celebrations that often happen. And they, you know, they can talk with their peer supporter when something comes up, as something comes up, and that peer supporter is likely going to be very familiar with that type of situation because they have possibly dealt with it before as a kinship caregiver themselves. And because we have this service, we have peer supporters that are employees, and we are now open to any county in the state, any caregiver in the state. We can provide the access to this service statewide now. Our programs are virtually based, which means that our kinship parents meet with our peer supporters through a video-based call. So whether that is Zoom or you know, Facebook, Messenger, Google Duo, they're able to meet with kinship caregivers at a time and a schedule that fits for them, which is very beneficial if some of them work. But it also allows us to be able to work with more and more folks because we just don't have that travel component that can sometimes really put a damper on your schedule. Can you go to the next slide? So how does the program work specifically? Well, it's actually very, very simple. We have an online referral form that folks can go to, and they can make an actual referral of a family. A family can also self-register. So if they hear about our program and they want to just sign themselves up, this one form does a referral and a registration. So it's really very simple. And it takes literally 5 minutes to fill out. It just gives some basic information. And once that information is completed, it's going to come to me for me to look at and for me to contact the family. Once I get the referral, I'm going to reach out to that family just to let them know that our program is available, explain it to them, and ask them if it would be a source of support for them. If they choose to join, which is entirely up to them, but if they choose to join, then I will match them with one of our peer support staff that has some similarity either in situation or in location, age, family makeup, lots of those demographics. I'm going to try to get them as closely matched as I can so that they can get the support that they need. Once they get signed up with their peer supporter, we're going to have a welcome meeting, which 15-minute Zoom meeting, just so that I can introduce them to their peer support. They can establish a schedule to meet, and then they'll start meeting weekly with that peer supporter through that platform, whatever platform they choose. And during those video calls, they're going to get to know, the peer supporters are going to get to know the family. They're going to get to know what challenges that family is facing. And they're going to try to start to get an idea of what resources that could benefit that family. In addition to that, they'll be able to just be a great listening ear, someone who has that lived experience, who can just relate to them, understand how they're feeling, situations that they're dealing with, and be able to kind of help keep them motivated and help get them connected and help them to know that, you know, what they're doing is an essential service, and it's really helpful to the kids that they're caring for. Additionally to this, they're going to receive a text or a quick phone call another time in the week, just as a check-in, just as a very brief check-in point to say, hey, are you okay? Is everything still okay? Are you okay until we meet again? And it's really just serves as a point that, we can check in with them. We can let them know that we're here for them. We can let them know that we're available if they need anything. That being said, their peer supporters are available if situations should come up where they need some more immediate assistance. Now, this type of support is, of course, on a limited basis, where our peer supporters are not counselors, therapists, or social workers. They're just folks with kinship experience that are doing kinship care on a daily basis. And so we can't do assessments, we can't do anything like that, but we can be there if somebody is experiencing a situation and may not know who they need to turn to, or may not know what program or what person to call. Or it could just be that they've had a rough day and they just need someone that they can talk to, vent to, and that is what a peer supporter is available and able to do, is to just be that person who they can talk to and not have to worry about, well, if I say this to my social worker, are they going to think this? Or if I say this to the therapist, are they going to worry about this? Our peer supporters understand that it's kinship is not always easy. And so they're able to be there to be that person and that support. The great thing about this program is it is voluntary, and folks are able to join. And once they feel like they get the connection and the resources and the support that they need for their families, it's our goal that it's going to increase their self-confidence as a caregiver. It's going to increase their ability and their ability to be able to manage the new life situation, new family situation that they have, and they may decide they no longer need the program. If that's the case, they're more than welcome to leave at any time. They just let us know and we discharge them from the program. So it really is designed to set up to be a very simple process that they can join easily. They can stay as long as it's beneficial to them, and then when they're ready to leave, they're able to leave. Throughout this process, we do offer incentives to folks who are participating. We do some surveys because we want to make sure the program remains impactful. So we have a total of $150 available through survey completion that will give us some information and feedback about the program, but can also give them a little bit of additional money to help with their family. Can you move to the next slide? So this is just a screenshot of what the referral form looks like. As you can see, it's very simple. It's name, address, phone, email, and county that you live in. So that's a good starting point for me to know how I can potentially get them set up, and it gives me a basis that I can be able to reach out and contact them on. Next slide. So that was our one-on-one peer support program. It's really very individualized and focused. Our next program is our Kin VIP support group program, and this program is established to do a lot of the same things. They are support groups ran by kinship caregivers, but the focus of this program is really about expanding and connecting kinship caregivers with other caregivers in the state, so that they not only have an enlarged service support system, but they can also still get those resources and find those connections that they really need in taking care of their families. So through this program, these are groups that run throughout the month at different days and different times, and it's designed again to meet over a Zoom meeting. So it's very easy. It works with schedules really well because folks don't have to find childcare. They can just join from wherever they're most comfortable. If that's home, they can join those groups and participate and get that support and that connection. We offer monthly groups. As I said, they kind of run different days, different times. We have one during the day, we have several during the evening, just to meet that schedule, whatever a kinship caregiver might need. We try to keep our groups relatively small. We cap groups at 12 people just because we want to maintain that intimacy. We don't want them getting, onto a Zoom meeting and seeing a whole screen full of people, because then it kind of loses that that personality and that closeness that is really important to a group environment. So we do keep them relatively small, and I will tell you that our groups really run around 5 to 6 people. So you know, they're even smaller than that right now. So it's a great way just for people to connect and to be able to do so easily. Whenever we start new groups, we start them always as a pilot, and this involves meeting weekly on a weekly basis to establish those connections, but then that group can transition over into a regular meeting group. We're getting ready to start a new group called Kinship Families that are affected by substance use. And this is really for families who are dealing with a family member substance use, and it's affecting their life, their family, their ability to provide care. And so we're currently taking signups for this group. And once we reach at least 9 to 10 people, ideally 10, then we can get that group going. And it's going to meet on Tuesday evening. So it'll be a great experience. And there are incentives for that group as well. It'll be, you know, for folks who participate and give us a survey after the group is over, they'll be able to get a $200 check. So it's a great opportunity to be able to participate and get connected with other folks who are experiencing similar issues. Next slide. So our last program is our educational platform, and this is our kinship catalog. And on this platform, we're doing a couple different things. We host a monthly live webinar once a month, each month on a different topic relative to kinship care. This month, we had a lawyer, actually, Carl Devine, previous judge in Fayette County, for family court. He came and talked with us about custody, understanding the differences between temporary and permanent custody, even understanding adoption. So it was a great presentation. And then that was in February. In March, we're going to be having one on understanding visitation and working with birth parents, because as you probably know, when you're kinship care and you're working with a family member to take care of a family member's child, there's a lot of emotional complexity to that relationship. So we want to look at it from a visitation perspective and be able to talk about how to best work with that. We try to record these webinars as long as presenters are okay with that, and then we post those online so folks can go on and review those if they weren't able to attend the live webinar event. They can go on and download those and be able to get that information and have the access to the important information that's beneficial. The great thing about the webinars is they are able to have a Q&A period with the presenters, and so get some personal questions answered, but the online resource gives them the ability to still connect with that. And then lastly, we're developing a training library. These are going to be training modules that are around 10 minutes in length, and they're going to be on various subjects. We have 3 posted now. We'll hopefully be posting another 3 to 5 here very soon. And these will just be opportunities for kinship caregivers to access training that's very interactive, that's fun, and hopefully give them some information at any time that they need it, and be able to get access to that information. So that is essentially in a nutshell what our programs are. And that, of course, is my contact information. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, or I'll turn it back over to Maurice in case he has anything he'd like to finish up with.
Nope, that's it from us. We'll wait to the end to answer any questions that y'all may have, so that way we can make sure Candy has enough time to present.
Thank you all. I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Candy Breedwell, and I am going to, let's see, share her PowerPoint. So give me just a second to get that up. Candy, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself while I'm setting this up, that'd be great.
Hello, everyone. My name is Candy Breadwell, and I am a grandmother, essentially taking care of my grandkids. I also I started with kinship, so pretty much have a good understanding of what is involved with being a kinship grandparent. I'm also a foster parent, and also I'm an adoptive parent. I adopted a two little girls out. It's not out of kinship. It's out of kinship, but this kind of goes through with the kinship program being designated someone outside of the family that is not related and that is has a relationship with the parent. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so I started my journey as a CASA worker, and for those of you that don't know what CASA is a child advocate for the courts, where you as a CASA, it's a volunteer basis, and for you as a CASA worker, your job is to be the eyes and the ears to the judge. So you've got so many different people involved in the case, and the judge appoints a CASA worker as an additional eyes. So you basically, you'll go and you'll speak with the families, everybody involved with the case. And so I got to learn a lot about the system and the processes of what happens when children are removed from parents. And each case that I was involved in, it was at minimum a year, because when these cases start, the case at very minimum is a year, because you've got about, I think it's like 14 months before they start potentially doing a termination of rights. But once the state took my grandchildren into custody, that's when I had to finalize my last case, because I already had one in my home that needed all of my attention, and I couldn't give all of my attention to another family when I had it in my home. So being grandparents, raising our children's children is one of the most rewarding, yet it's turbulent because of all the relationships that you have with the parents, or depending on the situation, you could have two different parents with two different families, and the emotions that are absolutely going rampant because the children were removed. They don't know what's going on, but it's by no fault of your own. You've got to raise your children's children, and you didn't do anything that got the children removed. So they have to look at all family first when they start to place children once they're removed from the parents' custody. Next slide, please. So one of the biggest issues that I've had as being a grandparent raising my grandchildren is learning the divide between the grandparent role and the parent role. As we become the parent and the caregiver of our grandchildren, we essentially become the parent. But the problem is being able to divide the relationship with the children, as from happy grandma giving out hugs, kisses, cookies, and sending the kids home to mom and dad full of sugar. and now we've got to be the caregiver, the disciplinarian, the education. We have all of that on our plate now. And unfortunately, I have grandchildren that have faced a lot of trauma. Therefore, the process of finding the resources to help my grandchildren heal from trauma from their mom and the people that she's had in their life, it's been a journey. And I've been dealing with this now for 6 years. And the most difficult thing is watching my grandchildren suffer from the trauma. And they have mental health issues, they have behavioral issues, and it's so tough because we don't know what resources are available to us. And a lot of us aren't reaching out, aren't saying, hey, I don't know where to go for this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what the next steps are, but there is some good news. Next slide, please. The good news is there are many resources available to help us and our grandchildren. And most of the children that come into care of grandparents, they do have trauma. Therefore, it's very important that we get the resources that will help our children heal from all the trauma and the pain that's been caused by whatever the issue is with the parents or the family. Next slide, please. So some of the resources that I have found helpful, North Key is a wonderful place to start when you can get the kids school-based therapy, as they also have the ability to give the medication if necessary. So if you have a child that's got ADHD, for example, they can give the child the medication, and not meaning they give it to them, meaning they fill out a prescription and send it in for you. But they have so many programs within North Key that I know of. And one of the amazing programs that I've been involved with for 6 years has been the Impact Program. And this program is absolutely wonderful for grandparents or parents that are needing the extra support with behavioral issues, as well as support for the grandparent. And you can make some really big impact on these children with having that extra help, having someone else be there to back you up if you don't have support. And that's where it's really tough, not having the support that you need because your family is divided now. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. You as a grandparent now are under scrutiny because, oh, well, you took my kids from me. Well, why were your children taken? You have done something to cause the safety of the children to be at risk. Therefore, that's not your fault as a grandparent. So there is a new program that is similar to North Key. It's called Stoic. And it's a new therapy company that they offer an amazing therapy program, and they help youth. They have group therapies where they meet like 4 times a week. The boys have 2 days a week they meet. The girls have 2 days a week they meet. They also help families in providing transportation, where they'll actually pick up your child and bring your child back home to you. So that is an amazing resource as well. Next slide, please. This resource, the Vine Dresser at Vineyard Church in Florence, Kentucky, they offer kinship families free clothing each season. And I think this is an absolutely amazing resource. And if you guys can contact Carla, I've given you her information, her phone number, it's 859-750-2846. And you can even text her at that number and ask for help for clothing. And if you have young children or babies that are still in diapers, they also have a diaper program. And I believe the diaper program lasts, don't quote me, 12 weeks. And the address is listed below. Next slide, please. So my journey being a long trial of learn as I go, I feel like we need a support group that is ran by a grandparent. We need to reunite as a group and share our journey with each other, to have a place where we can share, vent, unload our frustrations. Because I've learned that in order to get all the information about like what's going on with our kiddos, best thing you can do, go to every court case, every court date that you have. Because unfortunately, the caseworkers, they're overwhelmed. They've got so many cases that sometimes it's hard to keep every case different and remember what's going on with each case, because they've got so many. So, and it's why the system is just too packed, and sometimes they just confuse the cases. So I highly suggest that you go to each hearing so you know exactly what's going on. And some of the other needs that I feel as grandparents, we need some, like, people that don't have a support system I think there needs to be like a grandparents' day out. And that would be just an amazing thing that we can do as grandparents, or even have support where grandparents share and, hey, this grandparent, will watch the kids for an hour while you go shopping or whatever. Next slide, please. So if anyone would like to reach out to me with any questions or any type of resources that I may be able to help you with, you can reach me through my email address, which is listed below. It's my first dot last name at gmail.com. And I'm going to turn it back over to, I believe, Maurice, or I'm not sure.
Right, so we have carved out time to be able to have some discussion. I know we've got some questions in the chat box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through there so we can talk about these things. The first question is, do you have, and I think this was for Maurice and Sheila, do you have something that you can send us that breaks down all of the program participation where incentives and or stipends are being provided? So we can make sure that we don't get that confused when we send it out to our local, our regional REACT members.
Absolutely. We have flyers that I can send you that will have links to that registration referral form. And we can also send you a breakdown of like the incentives and what's involved with those. And actually I have a great one-page flyer that has all of the programs that are listed on it with clickable links that you can email out and be able to get access to all of the program pages.
Also, a lot of the information that I talked about, and Leah actually posted it in the chat, the link to KY Faces. So if you go to that link and you click kinship and then how we support you, a lot of that information and even more of what I talked about is there. And also to where the video is at, if you click that link and go to videos, and we're in the process of hopefully updating this video to include the per diem as being $12 per day for those seeking approval. All that information is actually there.
Okay, and I think Lee has just put that website in the chat box. And so if you don't pull it off of the chat, what I'll do is I'll put an email together after this session, and it will include the resources that they talked about. As long as our presenters are fine with us sharing their PowerPoints, it will include that information as well, and their contact information and the link to the recording of the session. So the next question is for Sheila. Can anyone make a referral to kinship peer support programs? For example, can a community partner such as the social worker make a referral, or does it have to be the relative or fictive kin caregiver?
Anyone can make a referral. So the social workers can, a mental health therapist can, even a neighbor can. So really the referral system is set up to accept it from anywhere, anybody that knows of a family that could benefit from this service, as well as families can sign themselves up as well. So yes, anybody can refer a family.
I also noticed there were a lot of folks, I heard people talking about Pioneer, so that's near where I live and where I actually work. So, I mean, we are interested in getting out to the schools and making the schools aware of this program. So if y'all have my contact information, if y'all are wanting to have us there, me and Sheila will gladly come and talk to the schools, about this program. So I'm just putting that out there.
And I see that Michelle has her hand up.
I have a question. So is there like a time limit as far as when somebody can be enrolled in like fictive kin? For example, like if a grandparent's been raising their grandchild who's now maybe 11, but the kiddo was removed and put in her care at like birth, and she's never received those supports, but had like the court order where the kiddo was removed and all that. Or is it like now that it's time's passed and she didn't enroll when the kiddo was first placed, now she's not eligible?
No, anybody can join the program at any time. So we will work with families that work with the cabinet. We'll also work with families that have had no experience working with the cabinet. And there's no time limit on, you know, when they can join or how long they have to participate. As long as they're a kinship caregiver and providing care for a kinship child, then they're eligible to participate.
Amber, I see your hand is up too.
Thanks, Vanessa. Maurice, would you be interested, or Sheila and Maurice, coming and speaking virtually to our Northern Kentucky REAC? All of the community partners in the Northern Kentucky area, well, not all, but there's a great amount. And I think this would be wonderful information to be shared.
Sure. I mean, we do in person too. We actually kind of like in person better. Like, me and Sheila have traveled all across the state of Kentucky, so there's no place too far for us to travel.
Absolutely. We have a little road show that we like to take on the road. So we're happy to come either virtually or in person.
Thank you.
So Amber, I love that you asked that question, because my next question was going to be, I know that we've got some REAC leaders on this call today, and I wanted to know if you guys had heard of some of these resources before. And if not, how can you take this and share it with all of your REAC members and system of care partners so we can get these words or these resources out there?
My goal is to bring them with me.
So this is Sunny with the Barren River REAC. We got a child through because he was taken from his family, and we had that same kind of court worker with us that actually kind of helped us to get Jordan, where we got full custody of Jordan.
So what I can do after this session as well is I can provide our presenters with a REAC leader contact list that includes the local resource coordinator of each REAC and the REAC chair. It also includes the day that their meetings are held during each month and the time. So if they do reach out to you, you'll know who they are. If they invite you to the REAC meetings to be able to share this information. I do know that most of the REAC meetings, and you guys speak up if I'm misspeaking for anybody, but most of them are virtual right now. Some have a hybrid option if you are so willing to travel, but many are virtual for everybody to be able to access. And I do see that we've got some people in the chat, like Jill, that said like Cumberland would be interested too, as well as the Barren River REAC. That's where Ann Embry is.
So I can say our most active area with KY Kansas actually in the Cumberland region. And the Cumberland region was actually the first region in which, and I don't know if y'all go by like our non-service region area, but I'm assuming it's similar to a degree. But we can say like the Cumberland region in regard to DCBS has been really active, but we rolled that out whenever COVID hit. So we were truly virtual whenever we launched in the Cumberland region. So the ability to be able to get out to the Cumberland region to talk to some of the providers in that area would be appreciated, because little do you know, like whenever we take the survey data, right? We also listen to feedback, and that's how changes happen. Like that's where the substance abuse group came from. This was new because it was asked about. So the more people we have involved, then the more information we can get, and then the more we can steer the program in the direction of what the need is for caregivers. So, while we started, but we need people to bring that information to us so that way we can make changes. And we're looking at even making even more changes now, so we're always looking to evolve and adapt to meet the need of our families. So just please keep that in mind.
Thank you. And our regions are set up just a little bit different. where you guys have non-service regions, there are actually 14 community mental health center regions that we go by, and there are 18 REACs across the state. So like in your Cumberland region, you would have the Cumberland Valley REAC and the Lake Cumberland REAC. So it's about 2 REACs to every non-DCBS or to every DCBS service region. All right. So there's another question for you guys in the chat box, and it is, can you attend the Trimble County Community Day on April the 15th? They have a ton of grandparents raising their grandchildren, and I bet most do not know about these benefits and resources.
So I would say reach out to us. We have to look at our calendars to see, but if there's a way that we can make it, then we will obviously do the best we can to make it.
And we also have some other REACs that are not represented today that I know grandparents raising grandchildren is their area of focus. So probably what I will do, rather than just sending out these wonderful resources that we're going to share after the session to just the participants that are on today and or registered, I'm going to send it out to all of our REAC leaders and let them know what is available, meaning you guys as the experts being able to come and talk to them about these great resources. All right. All right, do we have any more questions for our presenters?
Vanessa, there's one in the chat from Kathy Mason.
Oh, okay. Kathy says, we at the Bluegrass East REAC would love it as well. Kathy said she was wondering if many of the, I think is that Fayette County Public School youth who are being raised by grandparents and aunts and uncles have access to this information.
So we've been to Fayette. I don't know how many community partners we've been able to touch bases with in Fayette. So I mean, if you put us in contact with the people in Fayette, the schools, I mean, that's right in Sheila's backyard, and I'll travel down there easily, and we will gladly meet with them and make them aware of this program.
All right, I think you're going to have lots of requests. I see it coming through in the chat box, and that's what these REAC Learning Series sessions are about, is just connecting people to the various resources across the state. And so I don't know how much you guys know about the REACs regarding who the mandated partners are that are on each REAC. So they have the Children's Services Director from the Community Mental Health Center. They have the court designated worker or court designated specialist on there. They have a special education cooperative. They have a parent with lived experience, a transition age youth with lived experience, a representative from the Department of Juvenile Justice, from the Family Resource Youth Service Center, the local health department, the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, and of course, the Department for Community-Based Services. So when you all are able to collaborate with the REACs and provide this information, the information that you're giving is going to so many of our partners that work with families and children across the state, especially those families and children that are considered to be at risk of behavioral health needs and or challenges, that are facing out-of-home care, child abuse, neglect, all those kinds of things. So I love that we've been able to make this connection today, because I think sharing this information with the REACs is an excellent place to be able to get this information out to those that could really benefit from it. Okay. So we've got some other things in our chat box. One says, especially for our case managers, to help them understand how to link their families to this resource. And that's a great point, Michelle. And then Lee said, a one-pager or flyers would be great to have at events. even if Maurice and Sheila couldn't be there in person. So we'll take what you have and we will pass that stuff along. I know our REACs would be happy to pass those resources along at any of the community outreach events that they do, as well as just with their community partners that sit around the table, including their non-mandated system of care partners, because we have law enforcement that serve on some of our REACs. We have city and county officials that serve on some of our REACs, psychiatric hospitals. Trying to think who else. We have community orgs like Big Brothers Big Sisters. Guys, you guys can fill in the blanks. I'm drawing a blank one right now, but all kinds of CASA, MCOs, yes, absolutely, that serve on our REACs as non-mandated members. So a great entity to be able to share this information and connect families with those resources.
Absolutely. And we have flyers that can be emailed where those links that I spoke about are active and can just be clicked directly out of the flyer. And then I have a flyer that's a printable one that has an address that can be typed in. So I have 2 versions of a flyer, so I'm happy to send those.
Thank you all. Well, are there any other questions or comments for our presenters today? All right. Well, Sheila, Maurice, Kathy, I want to thank you guys for coming and speaking with us today, especially on a day where our weather is a little bit iffy. I appreciate you guys joining and spending time with us this morning. If you haven't completed the session evaluation, please do so. I'm going to go ahead and put that back in the chat box one more time. And let's see here. We are still currently working on our information for our April REACT Learning Series session. So be on the lookout for that information. And if there's nothing else, I will go ahead and conclude this session. It's great to see you guys, and stay safe and be careful today.